Before we start, I have to mention that I am going to address this video to my 13-year-old self. If I had found this video 10 years ago, I wouldn't have wasted so much time running around in circles, copying manga pages over and over and hoping that it was somehow helping me to improve. So, this is a textbook. It's what I used to learn history in school. And back in school, the learning system was quite simple. Read a certain amount of pages over and over again before the exams, and then put down everything you remembered on your exam sheet. But when studying art, we try to apply this method that we have perfected during our time at school. But you might have realized that this is an inefficient way to learn, because all you're doing is memorizing and then forgetting it all so you can memorize something else. Learning art is different. It's more akin to learning a sport. Let me explain. I promise it will all make sense in the end. One of the biggest differences between learning in school and learning art is the inherent lack of a problem. You see, in school, the reason why most of us studied was to get good grades. But you can't do that in art. Not if you want to improve at a decent rate, at least. The first step in studying art is to find a problem to solve. Studying for the sake of it is by its very definition pointless. So let's give ourselves a problem to solve. It could be anything like anatomy, color, or design. While these are great problems to work on, they're also very broad and intimidating. And here is where we enter step 2. Be specific. At the start, it's quite tempting to want to just study anatomy or color theory. But you have to be more specific. You can't rush learning art or anything else for that matter. Trust me, I found that out the hard way. So I'll choose a specific topic like hands. See, now that's a lot better because now I know exactly what to do next. Step 3. Find references. Now, this sounds simple in theory, and a lot of people are quick to jump on Google image search. But if you can find what it is you want to study in real life, I would strongly recommend you go that route. We have been trained to perceive photograph as accurate, but depending on the type of camera, the lenses, the environment the photograph was shot in, or even your monitor settings, it could look very different. But our eyes are much more accurate, and we can also look around our subject to see where the light source is coming from and view the subject from different angles to better understand what we are studying. And now for the 4th step, draw it or paint it slowly. This part is fairly straightforward. I usually take about 30 minutes to an hour when doing most of my studies, because when I spend any more, I usually just sit there and mindlessly render, and unless I am specifically studying how to render a certain object, I could spend my time doing something more productive. One word of advice: turn up the music and try doing this in silence. I know it's difficult, but it would yield a better result. Or better yet, talk to yourself and ask yourself questions like, where is the light coming from? Or in my case, why is my palm flexing? You'd think your knuckles would line up with the base of your fingers, but it is positioned quite a bit lower. I'll keep that in mind when painting in the future. And you are done. Or that's what you thought. You see, most people skip step 5 and in turn cut the amount of knowledge they could have retained in half. Now, you are probably asking what this magical step is. It's quite simple really. Application. And that is what I meant when I said that studying art is like learning sports. You can play football or basketball in your yard all day, and sure, you will gradually get better over the course of many years. But training for the big game is how you really improve. So without looking at your study, try to draw or paint something similar using your newfound knowledge, and you'll quickly realize how much you know versus how much you think you know. Copying a reference isn't really studying until you apply it to something. There's a quote from one of my favorite books that says, "As knowledge is acquired, it must be organized and put into use for a definite purpose through practical plans." Knowledge has no value except for what can be gained from its application towards some worthy end. So apply your studies. This method works best if you come across your problem while working on a piece, for example, where you can then follow the steps, go back to your piece, and then apply what you just learned. Now, I have to stress that learning art is a marathon, not a sprint, and I know that it can be daunting, but that's where we have each other. Ask people for help or advice, and take your studies one step at a time. Okay, 13-year-old Styles? Oh, and by the way, Styles, one last thing. Don't put learning art before your friends. You will miss them when they are all gone. Stylesosunde, this has been ARTFLOW. And remember, eat, sleep, art. Bye.